too big for their world. Thela was not like the others. From the moment she was born, everyone could see it. She was bigger, much bigger. Her limbs were longer, her shoulders wider, and even her heartbeat was louder. The healers called her a mutation. The elders called her useless. But her mother had only smiled and whispered, "You are strong, my daughter." In Thela's world, size was not strength. Her people believed that small, thin bodies were beautiful and pure. Heavy ones are slow, and slow ones cannot survive, they always said. The tall were feared. The big were pushed away. As a child, Thela tried to hide her size. She bent her knees while walking to appear shorter. She ate less. She tried to speak softly, but her body didn't change, and the other children didn't stop laughing. "Monster," one shouted. "Will you eat us?" Another joked. Her teachers told her not to cry, but to be grateful you were not thrown out. That was the punishment for those who didn't fit in, exile. Still, she tried her best. She helped the old. She studied hard. She worked in the food center, even though it was hard to move in tight spaces. But no matter what she did, no one truly looked at her with kindness. When Thela turned 20, the village sent her to the doctors for her reproduction exam. All women in her species were tested. If they passed, they were matched with a mate. If they failed, the doctors stared at her body for a long time. They measured her womb. They scanned her blood. Then came the words she had feared. Too large. Too risky. Childbirth would kill you and the offspring. You are unfit to reproduce. That was it. No care. No comfort. Just cold words. The next day, the elders summoned her to the council dome. They did not ask her anything. They simply read out her fate. You bring shame to your kind. Your body is waste. You will never bear life. You are no longer part of this society. They gave her one bag of food and a thin coat. Then they opened the steel gates and told her to walk. Outside was the wasteland, the frozen, windy lands beyond the safe cities. She did not cry. Not until the gates shut behind her. Snow hit her face like sharp stones. The wind screamed louder than she could. She walked for hours. Her feet bled. Her hands shook. But still she walked. Finally, she found a cave between two large rocks. She collapsed inside. That became her home. Days passed. Then weeks. She learned to make fires. She hunted tiny snow beasts and drank melted ice. Every night she whispered to the stars, "Is there someone out there who won't fear me?" But no voice ever answered. One day, as she hunted near the edge of a cliff, she saw something strange in the sky. A bright light, fast like a falling star. It roared across the clouds and hit the land with a loud boom. Thela's heart raced. It was not a natural thing, it was a ship. She stood there staring at the smoke far in the distance. Then for the first time in months, she felt something inside her chest. Not pain, not fear. Hope. The frozen planet. Thela stood at the edge of the cliff staring at the smoke rising in the white sky. Her breath made little clouds in the cold air. Her heart beat fast. That wasn't a comet. It was something made. Something from the stars. A ship. No one had visited this frozen planet in years. Only exiles like her lived out here, scattered and forgotten. Thela's fingers tightened around her spear. Was it dangerous? Or could it be a sign? She turned and ran. Her heavy steps crushed the snow. Ice crunched under her boots. The cold wind howled in her ears, but she didn't stop. She had not felt this alive in months. Her muscles burned, her lungs begged for air, but she kept going. Something deep inside told her, this crash is not the end. It is the beginning. It took hours to reach the smoke. By the time she got there, the sky had turned gray and snow had begun to fall again. She crouched behind a jagged rock and peeked at the wreck. The ship was not large, black metal. Strange writing on its side. Fire hissed from the engine. The back half was buried in snow. Doors broken. Panels sparking. Then she saw movement. A figure, small, hunched, dragged itself out from the wreckage. It was not her kind. It was human. She had only seen humans in old broadcasts. Thin skin, soft bodies, weak lungs, but clever, smart, powerful. With machines, this one looked hurt. The man staggered a few steps and collapsed into the snow. He didn't get up. Thayla's chest tightened. Her first thought was to leave. Let him die. That's what the world had done to her, after all. But she didn't move. Something about him lying there helpless in the snow reminded her of herself. The night she was cast out. The cold. The pain. The loneliness. She stood up. Slowly, she walked toward him, step by step. The wind pushed her back as if warning her. Don't do it. Don't help him. But she kept walking. When she reached him, he was barely breathing. His lips were blue. His body shivered. His clothes were torn. Thayla dropped to her knees beside him. He looked up at her. Just a little. His eyes widened. For a second she saw fear, but then his lips moved, and he whispered a single word. Help. That broke her. She slipped her arms under him. He was light. So light. Like lifting a child. She turned and carried him through the storm, back toward her cave. By the time she reached her shelter, night had fallen. Snow fell heavy, now covering everything in white silence. Inside, her cave was small but warm. A fire glowed in the center. Animal furs lined the walls. She laid the human down gently near the heat. His body trembled. She hurried to take off his wet boots and jacket. His skin was cold like ice. Thayla moved fast. She wrapped him in furs. She fed the fire. She boiled water and held a cup to his lips. He didn't drink, not yet. But he was alive. All night, she stayed awake, watching him. Her big hand rested near his chest, feeling the faint beat of his heart. She didn't sleep. When morning came, the storm had passed. Light entered the cave through a crack in the rocks. The human opened his eyes. He stared at the ceiling, confused. Then he turned his head slowly and saw her sitting by the fire. Their eyes met. He blinked. She didn't move. Then, he smiled. Just a little. Not dead, he whispered. His voice was rough, but alive. Thayla tilted her head. She didn't speak his language well, but she understood. He was thankful. She handed him the cup of warm water. He drank slowly, then looked around. Where? He asked. Thayla placed a hand on her chest. Thayla, she said slowly. He pointed at himself. Jack. They sat in silence for a while, two strangers in a frozen world. But something had changed. She was no longer alone, and neither was he. The human in the snow. Jack didn't know where he was. His head hurt, his ribs ached, and his hands were stiff from cold. But when he opened his eyes and saw the tall alien woman sitting near a fire, he knew one thing for sure. She had saved his life. Her name was Thayla. She had told him that, with a deep voice and kind eyes. She sat cross-legged near the flames, sharpening a bone knife. Her skin shimmered faintly in the firelight, a pale silver. She looked strong, much stronger than any human. But she hadn't hurt him. She had helped him. Jack moved slowly. Every muscle in his body complained. His arm was wrapped in some kind of thick fur. His jacket, torn during the crash, now lay by the fire, drying. The cave walls were rough stone, but it felt warmer than any ship he had known. Thank you, he said softly, not knowing if she understood. Thayla looked at him, blinked once, then gave a slow nod. Safe, she said in her deep alien accent. Jack smiled. For a moment, the silence between them was peaceful, but then his stomach growled. Loudly, Thayla stood up without a word. She walked to a stone bowl and took out something that looked like roasted meat. She placed it on a flat rock near the fire, warmed it, then handed it to him. He hesitated. It smelled strange, but not bad. He took a bite. It was tough, chewy, but it tasted like real food, and after what he'd been through, it was delicious. He ate quickly. She watched, amused. "You eat like cave beast," she said. Jack laughed. "You found me half dead in the snow, remember?" She tilted her head as if trying to understand. He pointed outside. "Crash," then pointed to himself. "Me. Hurt." She nodded slowly. "Skyfire, I see. You fall." "Yes," Jack said. "Lucky you found me." Thela was quiet for a moment. Then she looked away and whispered, "I almost not go." Jack stared at her. "Why?" She looked down at her large hands, her fingers curled around her knees. "People fear me, say I too big, too wrong, not woman." Jack's face softened. "They said that?" She nodded. "No family, no mate, no child, only exile." The fire crackled between them. The warmth in the cave was nothing compared to the sadness in her voice. "I'm sorry," Jack said gently. "They were wrong." She looked up at him, her eyes surprised. Jack leaned forward slightly. "You saved me. That means something." Thela blinked. "You not afraid of me?" He chuckled. "You're the only reason I'm not frozen meat right now." She didn't smile, but something in her expression softened. For her, this wasn't just small talk. It was the first time in years someone had seen her as more than a mistake. That night, a blizzard howled outside the cave. Inside, Jack and Thela sat close to the fire, wrapped in separate furs. Jack tried to teach her human words using small drawings on the stone floor. He drew a stick figure. "Man." He drew a smaller one with long hair. "Woman." She laughed. "You think I look like that?" Jack scratched his head. No, just," showing the word. She leaned forward and took the bone he was using. She scratched a tall, wide figure. "Me," she said. Then she drew a tiny person beside it. "Others." Jack pointed to the small figure. "Fools," he joked. Thela gave her first real smile. It was big and beautiful. Later, as Jack lay on his back staring at the rock ceiling, he spoke softly. "My crew. They didn't make it. I saw the readings. I'm the only one who survived the crash." Thela said nothing for a while. Then, she whispered, "Now you are exiled too." Jack closed his eyes. "I guess I am." She turned toward him. "But we not alone." "No." He agreed. "We're not." Outside, the storm screamed louder. But inside the cave, there was something. Stronger than the wind, a small spark, a bond. Two lost souls thrown out by their people, finding comfort in each other. Two strangers. One fire. The fire crackled softly in the cave. Jack sat across from Thela, wrapped in a thick fur, his body still sore but stronger than before. His hands were no longer shaking. His color had returned. But what truly kept him warm was not the fire. It was her. He had never expected this. An alien, a stranger, a woman with a body so large and strong it could crush him without trying. Yet she had done none of that. She had saved him, fed him, cared for him, and now they shared quiet moments by the fire. Thela sharpened her spear slowly, the bone edge sliding against a rock. Jack watched her hands, steady, skilled. She wasn't just strong. She was smart, careful. She knew how to survive in this frozen land. "You live here alone?" Jack asked softly. Thela nodded without looking up. 3 years. He was quiet for a second, then said, "That's A long time. She didn't answer. The wind howled outside the cave. Snow blew past the entrance like white ghosts. Inside, their little world stayed safe and warm. Jack leaned forward. You ever think about leaving this place? She looked at him with unreadable eyes. Go where? He opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. Where would she go? Back to the people who cast her out? Back to a city that called her a monster? No. She had no place but here. I'm sorry, he said. Thela stared into the fire for a while, then said, You are kind, Jack. Not like others. He shrugged. I know how it feels. Being judged. Being pushed out. She tilted her head. You? He chuckled. Yeah. Back on Earth, I was always the odd one. Grew up poor. Lost my parents early. Lived in the cracks of society. Nobody saw me until I became useful with machines. Thela looked down at her hands. My people saw me as broken. Jack shook his head. You're not broken. You're brave. The words hung in the air. She had heard insults. She had heard lies. She had even heard silence. But no one had ever called her brave. That night, as the fire burned low, Jack stood and stretched. Gonna try to sleep, he said. Thela nodded. He picked up a small fur mat and lay near the wall. But the stone was cold. The fur wasn't enough. He turned his back to the wind creeping into the cave. Still, his teeth began to chatter. Suddenly he felt a shadow fall over him. He looked up, and Thela was there, standing tall with a large blanket in her arms. Without asking, she placed it over him. It was heavy, warm, full of her scent. Better, she said softly. Jack looked up into her eyes. Thank you. She turned away quickly, but not before he saw it. A small smile she was trying to hide. In the middle of the night, Jack woke to the sound of her breathing. Not loud, not rough, just calm, slow. He turned his head. She was curled up beside the fire now, arms tucked under her head like a child. The glow of the flames touched her silver skin, lighting up her face with soft gold. In that moment, she didn't look big. She didn't look strange. She looked peaceful, beautiful even. Jack stared for a while. Not with fear, not with pity, with awe. She had been thrown away by her kind because they said she could never be a mother. But in just a few days, she had shown more care than anyone he had known in years. She had risked her life to save his. She had shared her fire, her food, her warmth, and her silence. Jack whispered, You're more human than most humans I know. Of course she didn't hear him, but the cave did, and it kept the secret safe. Why were you cast out? The storm outside had passed, but a different storm stirred quietly between them. Jack sat beside Thela close to the fire, watching her roast small pieces of meat on a hot stone. The cave was warm, but something felt cold in the air. A question had been on his mind for days. He had been patient. He hadn't pushed. But now, he needed to ask. Thela, he said softly, why did they send you away? She didn't look at him. Her hands kept turning the food, slow and steady. Jack waited. He added gently, You saved me. You care. You're not dangerous. Still, no answer. Only the crackling of flames and the faint wind outside. Jack lowered his voice. They must have been blind to push someone like you out. At last she spoke. They said I could not be mother. He blinked. What? She looked up and her eyes were darker than he had ever seen. Too big, too strong. My body, not normal. Doctors say I cannot carry child. Say it would break me. Kill me. Jack's heart sank. She turned back to the fire. In my people's eyes, woman without child is nothing. No future, no purpose, no love. He leaned forward. So they just abandoned you? She nodded slowly, gave me one bag, one coat, opened gate, told me to walk. And your family? He asked. Her voice was flat. My mother cried, but she said, better to lose you now than watch you suffer. Jack clenched his fists. That's cruel. Thela took the cooked meat and placed it between them. She didn't eat, just stared at the flames again. I was 16, she whispered. That day, I learned how cold the world is. Not just outside, but inside hearts. Jack didn't speak, he couldn't. He didn't want to say something that would feel small in front of her pain. So instead, he reached out, slowly, and placed his hand over hers. She flinched at first, then stilled. Her hand was 3 times the size of his, but in that moment she looked so small, so quiet. You're not nothing, Jack said. You're someone. Thela's lips parted, but no words came out. He looked into her eyes. They saw your body, but I see your soul. A long silence followed. Then her voice broke. I wanted to be a mother. I used to dream about holding a child. Mine. Safe, warm in my arms. Jack nodded. You would have been a great one. She pulled her hand back slowly. Not possible now. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. Says who? Thela gave a bitter smile. My blood, my body, my fate. Jack was quiet for a while, then he said, maybe your people don't understand what makes a mother. She raised her brow. What do you mean? A mother is more than giving birth. A mother is someone who protects, who cares, who loves. And you did all of that for me. Thela stared at him. Jack's words were not fancy, not big, but they reached deep inside her chest. You don't have to be small to be gentle, he continued. You don't have to carry a baby to have a mother's heart. Her eyes glistened, not from smoke, from something deeper. Then in a voice so soft it barely reached his ears, she asked, do you think someone like me could ever be loved? Jack didn't smile. He didn't joke, he just nodded. Yes, I do. That night, Thela sat awake long after Jack had fallen asleep. The cave was dark except for the glowing coals. She looked at his sleeping form, curled under the big fur she had given him. He had come from the stars. He had seen her as more than her body, more than a mistake. He had given her back something her world had stolen. Hope. She touched her chest slowly, where her heart beat steady and slow, and for the first time in years she let a tear fall, not from pain, but from healing. A mother's hope. A quiet peace had settled over the cave. It had been 2 weeks since the crash. Jack's wounds were healing. He could walk without pain. He had even started repairing small pieces of his broken gear. But no technology mattered. As much to him now as what was growing between them. Each day he and Thela shared more than food, more than warmth. They shared memories. She told him about her childhood dreams, how she used to watch the stars and wonder if someone out there was like her, someone who didn't belong. He told her about Earth's oceans, how they stretched farther than eyes could see, and how he always wanted to take someone special there. Every story, every laugh, brought them closer. But one evening, as they sat beside the fire, something changed. Jack pulled a small device from the salvage pile. It was cracked but blinking faintly. He held it up. It's a bioscanner, he explained. It reads life signs, health, DNA patterns. I thought it was completely broken. Thela tilted her head. What will you do with it? Jack smiled. I want to learn more about this planet's atmosphere. Maybe send a signal home. He tapped a few buttons. Lights blinked red, then green. Suddenly the scanner buzzed softly. Jack looked down. The screen displayed 2 readings. His own and hers. He narrowed his eyes. Wait, he whispered. Thela noticed the change in his face. What is it? Jack didn't speak at first. Then, very slowly, he looked up. Thela, did your people ever run a full DNA match? With someone, not from your species? She frowned. No. Why? Jack turned the scanner toward her. According to this, you're compatible. With humans. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean, he said, heart pounding. It's possible. You could biologically carry a child, a human child. She stared at him in disbelief. No, she said. They said, impossible. Jack leaned forward. They tested you by their rules, their narrow science. But your body, your strength, it might have been made for something more, something different. She stood up, walking away from the fire, her mind spinning. This is not a game, she said, voice shaking. You don't know what it meant to lose that hope. I do, he said, rising. I've felt alone too. I've lost people too. But I'm telling you, Thala, this is real. This isn't pity. This is possibility. She turned to him, her silver eyes full of something deep, fear, longing, confusion. You think I could be a mother? Jack took a breath. I think you already are. You've protected me, cared for me, kept me alive. What more could a child ask for? Silence stretched between them like a thin string, and then her voice, barely a whisper. If I say yes, if I try, what would that make us? Jack walked closer. That would make us something new. Later that night, they sat side by side. No fire between them now. Only shared warmth. Thala placed a hand gently on her stomach. I never let myself imagine it. A child. A future. Jack reached over and placed his hand on top of hers. We can try. No promises. No pressure. Just hope. She nodded slowly. A mother's hope. Jack smiled. And a father's. For a long time they sat there not speaking, and in that stillness something changed. Not in the stars, not in the ice, but in them. Two lost beings, cast out by their worlds, daring to believe in something more. A family. The first cry, the seasons on the frozen planet did not change much. The snow stayed, the wind whispered, the stars above never blinked. But inside the cave, everything had changed. There was warmth beyond the fire now. There was love. It had been many weeks since Jack and Thala had made their quiet promise. A promise not built on need, but on trust. They hadn't rushed. They hadn't forced it. They had chosen it. Each day, Jack rebuilt small pieces of the ship. Not to escape, he had decided not to leave alone, but to make things better for survival. A heater that worked. A small water purifier. A cradle made from polished metal and soft animal furs. Thala worked too. She built new traps, stored more food, wove stronger furs, and each night, they lay beside the fire, her head near his chest, his hand resting gently where new life now grew. Yes, life. A tiny, growing heartbeat had appeared weeks ago on the scanner. It pulsed strong and steady, just like hers. Thala was going to be a mother. Not in a dream, not in a story, but in truth. One morning she woke with pain. Sharp, deep, real. She cried out, her body shaking. Jack jumped up from beside her. It's happening now, she nodded, teeth clenched. The child on it comes. They had prepared, but nothing could truly prepare them. Jack rushed to heat the cave, bring water, and lay soft furs. Thala gripped the stone floor, her hands trembling. For hours the storm outside raged, and inside she did too. But she did not scream in fear, she screamed with strength. Jack held her hand through it all, whispering soft words. You can do this, you're not alone. And then, just as the storm began to quiet, a sound filled the cave. A cry, a soft, high, beautiful cry. Jack's eyes widened. Thala gasped. She sat up slowly, and there in her arms lay a child. Small, warm, alive. half human, half her. The child had tiny fingers, soft skin, and faint silver markings on the sides of his cheeks. His cry was not of pain, but of life. Jack knelt beside her, his eyes wet. "You did it." Thela looked at the baby, then at Jack. "No," she said softly. "We did it." The next days were full of new sounds, not just the fire or wind, but soft breaths, small hiccups, quiet laughter. Thela no longer walked alone in the snow. She carried her child close to her heart, wrapped in fur, protected, loved. Jack had never seen her smile so much, not even when she laughed before. This smile was different. It was full. It was whole. Sometimes she would sit at the cave's mouth, the baby in her arms, and whisper to the stars, "You gave me nothing before, but now I have everything." One night, Jack joined her. They looked up together. He asked, "Do you think your people would change if they saw this?" Thela didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Maybe, maybe not, but I don't need their eyes anymore." Jack smiled. "They cast you out, and you became more than they ever imagined." She nodded. "I was too big for their world," she said. "But maybe I was made for something greater." She looked at the baby in her arms. A new world. Jack placed his arm around her shoulder. Together, they sat as the stars watched in silence, no longer outcasts, no longer broken, but a family, and in the heart of the frozen planet, where no one else dared to live, something warm and bright now burned forever. Hope.